My name is Sophie. I'm 62 years old, and every morning for the last 5 years has started the same way. I shuffle into the kitchen in my robe, turn on the coffee maker, and reach up to the top right shelf of the cabinet for one particular mug. It wasn't the newest mug in the house. It wasn't the prettiest. By most people's standards, it was kind of ugly. Off-white ceramic gone a little yellow with age. A crooked sunflower painted on one side. The words, "You are my sunshine," in wobbly, handy-painted letters. A faint crack snaking down the handle, but it was the last birthday present my wife, Anna, ever gave me. Anna and I were married for 34 years. We built a life in this house together. She was not the crafty type at all, which is why the mug always made me smile. The year before she got sick, our church hosted a little pottery class. One night, she came home with clay on her jeans and a grin on her face. On my birthday, she handed me this crooked, sunny splashed mug like it was a priceless treasure. "It's not perfect," she said, cheeks pink, "but now I can say I literally made your morning coffee." A year later, she was gone. Cancer doesn't care how much you love someone. After the funeral, when everybody went home and I was left in this too-quiet house, that mug became more than just something to drink out of. It was the first thing I reached for every morning, the object my hands wrapped around when the grief hit hardest, a small, solid piece of her that still lived in my daily routine. My son, Ben, is 34 now. He adored his mother. Losing her cracked him open too. When he asked if his then girlfriend Taylor could move in for a while to help out, I said yes. It was chaotic, but in a way it was better than the tomb-like silence I'd been drowning in. Eventually, they moved into their own place. Then, this past year, they hit a rough patch, job changes, rent skyrocketing, the usual modern mess. I told them they could move into my guest room for 6 months tops to get back on their feet. That's how my house became a 3-adult household again. Taylor is 29, high energy, a self-described minimalist organizer. She has a small TikTok account where she posts videos about decluttering, labeling everything in sight, and throwing away anything that doesn't fit her idea of aesthetic. The first week they moved in, she walked into my kitchen, put her hands on her hips, and said, "This place has so much potential, Sophie. We just need to get rid of some of this old stuff and make it modern." I forced a smile. "It works for me," I said. She laughed. "Oh, I know. You're just used to it. Don't worry, organizing is my superpower. I'll help." In the next few days, she rearranged my pantry for efficiency, moved pots and pans to what she called better spots, bought matching jars for sugar, flour, and pasta. Some of it was fine. I can live with the salt being on a different shelf. But when I walked into the kitchen one afternoon and saw her standing on a stool, reaching toward my top right cabinet, my stomach lurched. "Taylor," I said, a little too quickly, "those top 2 shelves are off-limits. Those are my personal things. Please don't move or get rid of anything up there without asking me first." She glanced over her shoulder and smiled like it was nothing. "Of course, totally get it." On that top shelf sat Anna's mug. Always. I had to stretch a little to reach it, but I liked it that way. It felt intentional, like I was choosing her every morning. For a while, things settled into a rhythm. Taylor still made small comments. "You know clutter raises cortisol, right? Why do you drink out of that cracked cup? You could chip a tooth. If you let me really redo this kitchen, it could be so cute on camera." Every time, I'd say, "I like my things the way they are," and change the subject. Then, one Saturday morning, everything changed. I woke up early, as always. The house was quiet. I padded into the kitchen, turned on the coffee maker, and stood there waiting for it to drip, letting the smell of coffee slowly wake me up. Behind me, I heard footsteps, Taylor's light, quick steps coming down the stairs. "Morning," she said, brushing past me toward the cabinets. "Morning," I replied, still half watching the coffee. I heard the cabinet door open. Ceramic clinked softly. Then there was a scraping sound, like something heavy being pulled across the shelf. I turned just in time to see Taylor's hand around the handle of Anna's mug. "Careful with that," I started. Too late. The mug slipped. It hit the edge of the counter, then the side of the sink. The impact echoed like a gunshot in my chest. It shattered into 3 big pieces and a spray of tiny shards. For a second, I couldn't breathe. Taylor blinked at the sink, then let out a short laugh. "Oh my God," she said. "Well, I guess that one was done anyway. Honestly, it's just old junk. You shouldn't keep stuff like this around." Old junk. I walked slowly over to the sink, eyes fixed on the broken pieces. I could see half of the sunflower on one shard, the letters "Sunch" fractured across another. "What did you do?" I asked. My voice came out thin and shaky. She shrugged. It was in the way. I was trying to bring the nicer mugs down so we could actually reach them. The handle just came off. It happens. You really shouldn't be using cracked mugs, you know. It's gross and unsafe. I picked up the largest piece with trembling fingers. That was Anna's, I said. She frowned. Who? My wife, I replied. Your mother-in-law. She made this for me. It was her last birthday present before she got sick. For a brief moment, I thought I saw something like guilt flicker over her face. Then her shoulders squared. I'm sorry it broke, she said. But it was an accident. And if it was that important, maybe it should have been in a box somewhere, not getting used every day. Stuff wears out. People need to move on. Ben says you never want to change anything in this house, and it worries him. It felt like someone had pushed a knife right through the crack in the mug and straight into my chest. Ben said that? I managed. Not exactly like that, she said quickly. I'm just saying it's not healthy to treat everything like a shrine. It's just stuff, Sophie. I realized my hand was bleeding slightly, where a sharp edge had dug into my palm. I need a minute, I whispered. I said I'm sorry, she replied, sounding more annoyed than remorseful. I didn't do it on purpose. You're being kind of dramatic about an old cup. I turned and walked out, clutching the shards in my fist. In my bedroom, with the door closed, I finally let myself cry. Not a few polite tears, but full-body sobs that made my ribs ache. I wasn't just mourning broken ceramic. I was mourning the feeling that my wife's memory, my grief, my small rituals could be dismissed in my own kitchen as just old junk. When the worst of the storm passed, I washed the blood from my hand, dried the mug pieces carefully, and put them into a small wooden box where I keep some of Anna's other things. Then I sat on the edge of the bed and thought, for most of my life, I've been the quiet one, the conflict avoider, the person who lets things go to keep the peace. Anna used to say, Sophie, you don't always have to be the one who swallows it. Sometimes people need to know when they've crossed a line. Looking at that little box, I heard her voice louder than I had in a long time. The mug was gone. I couldn't change that. But what happened next? That, at least, was still up to me. The funny or cruel thing was that I already had plans for the very next day. I had invited a few family members over for Sunday lunch. Anna's younger sister, Maria, my niece, Laura, my old friend James and his wife, and, of course, Ben and Taylor, who were already living upstairs. It was supposed to be a light, casual meal. Nothing fancy. Just an excuse to fill the house with voices again. Now, I was looking at the calendar thinking, do I cancel? Do I pretend nothing happened? Do I smile while my daughter-in-law eats off plates my wife picked out? The old me would have swallowed it, put on a brave face. Later, after everyone left, I would have cried over the sink while washing dishes. But sitting there with that small box of broken ceramic in my lap, I decided I was done swallowing everything. If I wanted my boundaries respected in my own home, I had to actually show people where those boundaries were. So I made a plan. Saturday afternoon, after my eyes weren't so puffy, I went out to the garage and pulled down a few storage boxes. In one labeled Kitchen Old, I found the receipt from the church pottery class Anna had taken, a silly photo of her at the studio, holding up a half-painted mug with her tongue sticking out. I smiled through a fresh sting of tears. Back in the kitchen, I set the mug shards out on the table like a puzzle. I'm not an artist, but grief makes you stubborn. Piece by piece, I glued the largest fragments back together, just enough to show the sunflower, arranged the smaller bits around it like broken rays of light, pressed them onto a small wooden plaque I'd found in my niece's craft supplies, poured a thin layer of clear resin over everything to hold it in place. When it dried, it wasn't a mug anymore. It was something new, a cracked but beautiful sunflower, the ghost of the words, "You are my sunshine," still visible in places. On the bottom, I wrote Anna's Sunshine in small gold letters. On the back, I taped the photo from the pottery class. I didn't know exactly how I'd use it yet. I just knew I wanted it visible when everyone came to eat. The other decision I made that night was harder. For months, I'd been quietly planning to give Ben and Taylor a significant chunk of money to use as a down payment on their own house. Anna and I had owned a small rental property years ago. I'd sold it recently, and that sale had freed up a nice sum. In a letter I'd already written and sealed, I'd explained how proud we were of Ben, how much we wanted him to have a solid start, that this was our way of helping them move into their own place. The envelope with that letter and a printout of the amount sat in my safe, labeled, "For Ben and Taylor, House." But that morning in the kitchen changed how I felt. I didn't suddenly stop wanting to help my son. I didn't stop loving them as a couple. But I realized something. I didn't feel comfortable dumping a piece of our legacy into the hands of someone who could walk into my kitchen, smash the last mug my wife ever gave me, and call it old junk. I took the envelope out of the safe that night. I tore up the letter. Then I wrote a new one. In it, I explained that the money from the sale was still set aside with them in mind, that I still wanted to help them someday, but that I no longer felt ready to do it right now. I wrote, I need to know that the people I'm entrusting this to understand what home and family things actually mean to me. When I see, over time, that our values align not about decor, but about respect for memories, then I will happily help you buy a place of your own. I put that new letter back in the safe. The number on the printout stayed the same. The conditions around it changed. Sunday morning, I woke up early, made coffee in a plain mug, and walked into the kitchen that now had an empty space on the top right shelf where Anna's mug had always lived. It looked wrong. So I reached up and moved a different old mug, a simple blue one we'd bought on a road trip, into that spot. Not as a replacement, but as a reminder that the world hadn't ended. Other things still existed. Life would keep moving. By 11, people started to arrive. Maria hugged me extra tight. Hey, Soph, she said softly. How are you holding up? I've been better, I admitted. But I'm glad you're here. My niece brought a pie. James brought his awful sense of humor. The house filled with familiar, comforting noise. Ben and Taylor came last. Ben looked guilty. Taylor looked uncertain. Smaller than usual. Morning, she said quietly. Morning, I replied. Thanks for helping yesterday. She nodded, relief flickering over her face that I wasn't icy or yelling. We all sat down around the table. I'd put the plaque with the sunflower on the sideboard, covered with a tea towel. Once everyone had filled their plates and settled, I stayed standing at my chair. I'd like to say something before we eat, I said. Ben gave me a curious look. I don't usually make speeches at Sunday lunch. This might seem like an odd topic, I continued, but I want to talk about stuff. The things we keep in our homes. A few people chuckled lightly. Maria, I said, turning to my sister-in-law, what's something in your house you'd grab in a fire after your kids and the dog? She answered immediately. Mom's rosary, she said. It's cheap plastic, but I'd dive into flames for it. What about you, James? I asked. He smiled. My beat-up guitar. It got me through my divorce. It's practically held together by duct tape now, but I'd die if someone tossed it. My niece said it was the stuffed rabbit she'd had since she was 4. Every answer was the same shape, ordinary object, loaded with personal meaning. Then I walked to the sideboard and lifted the tea towel. Underneath, the broken sunflower shone faintly under the resin. This, I said, holding up the plaque, used to be my morning coffee mug. The table went quiet. It was the last birthday present Anna gave me, I said. I drank out of it every day for 5 years after she died. My voice caught for just a second, but I kept going. Yesterday, it was broken, and it was called just old junk. I didn't look directly at Taylor, but I didn't have to. Everyone knew. I'm not saying this to embarrass anyone, I said. I'm saying it because I want it to be very clear. In this house, other people's memories are never junk, even if you don't understand them. I set the plaque upright so it faced the table. Stuff is just stuff until it isn't, I said. Until it's the last thing your wife ever made for you. Or the plate from your wedding. Or the toy your kid couldn't sleep without. Maria wiped at her eyes. My niece sniffled. Ben stared at his lap. I took a breath. Time for the other part. I was going to do something today, I said, turning to Ben and Taylor. Something I'd been planning for months. Their eyes met mine. I was going to give you both a substantial amount of money from the sale of an old property to use as a down payment on your own home, I said. It was going to be a surprise. I even wrote the letter. Taylor's lips parted. Ben whispered, Mom. But yesterday, I continued, I realized something important. A house is more than walls and a mortgage. It's what you put in it, how you treat the things and people in it. I paused, letting that sink in. So here's the big surprise. Instead, I said, the money is still there. It is still for you, but I am not giving it today. I'm waiting. Waiting for what? Taylor asked, her voice very small. Waiting to see, I answered, that you understand what home means in this family, that you can respect the things that came before you, even if they're cracked and old and not your style. When I see that, truly, over time, not in one day, I will gladly help you build your own place. The room was dead silent. That was the moment I saw whether my words had landed or not. Taylor stared down at her plate, her face pale. Ben looked like he wanted to both disappear and fight someone at the same time. That feels harsh, Taylor said finally, her voice tight. You're going to hold money over our heads because of a mug? I shook my head. I'm not holding money over your heads, I said calmly. I'm setting a boundary. There's a difference. What boundary? She asked, sounding more defensive now. I said I was sorry, it was an accident. You said you were sorry that it broke? I replied gently. and then told me I was dramatic and that I should move on. That's not really the same thing. Maria spoke up, her voice soft but firm. Sweetheart, she said to Taylor, I watched them build this life from nothing. That mug might look like junk to you, but to Sophie, it's 30+ years of love and one horrible year of loss in ceramic form. My niece nodded. And Sophie isn't saying never throw anything away, she added. She's saying ask before you toss and don't mock what you don't get. Taylor's shoulders sagged a little. I grew up with none of this, she said quietly, gesturing around the dining room. We moved every year. My parents threw stuff out constantly. If something got chipped, it went in the trash. We didn't keep anything. We never had this connection to objects. She swallowed. When I see an old cracked mug, I don't automatically think memory, she said. I think trash. That's how I was raised. I thought I was helping by making the space look nicer. I didn't mean to stomp on your heart like that. I felt some of the tightness in my chest loosen. Thank you for saying that, I said, acknowledging that you didn't understand and that it hurt me that matters. Taylor's eyes were wet now. I am sorry, she said again, looking directly at me. Not just sorry it broke. I'm sorry I touched something you'd asked me not to. I'm sorry I called it junk. I get carried away with this whole aesthetic thing and forget there are people attached to the stuff I'm reorganizing. I nodded slowly. That's what I needed to hear, I said. Not perfection, not fear, just awareness, respect. Ben finally spoke up. I should have explained the mug better to her, he said. I honestly thought I had. That's on me too. I've told her stories about Mom, but not always the details. He looked at Taylor. And I shouldn't have vented in a way that made it sound like I thought Mom living with her memories was unhealthy. I worry about you, Mom, but that doesn't mean I want your house stripped bare. I smiled a little. I know you worry, I said. But this house is mine. It's allowed to look like my life, not a showroom. There was a soft laugh around the table at that. We moved on to actually eating after that. Conversation slowly shifted to lighter topics, stories about Anna, family gossip, dumb things Ben did as a teenager. It wasn't like nothing had happened. It was like we'd walked through a storm and come out the other side a little soggy but still standing. After everyone left, Taylor lingered in the kitchen while Ben saw Maria and James to the door. She cleared her throat. Can I ask you something? She said. Of course, I replied. She pointed at the plaque with the mug pieces, now propped against the backsplash. How did you do that? She asked. The resin thing. It's actually really pretty. I laughed, surprised. Mostly stubbornness, I said. And some craft supplies your cousin forgot here. She smiled faintly. Will you show me? She asked. Not just how to do the resin. I mean, will you show me the stories of the things in this house so I don't make this mistake again? That question hit me harder than any apology. Yes, I said. I would love to. So that evening, we did a slow tour of the kitchen. I pointed out the mixing bowl with a burn mark from the time Anna forgot the stove was on because she was dancing with Ben. The chipped plate from our first apartment that had survived 7 moves, the small knife with a wooden handle that had belonged to my father. For each one, Taylor asked quietly, Does this have a story? And when I said yes, she wrote a tiny initial in pencil on the underside S for mine, A for Anna, so she'd remember not to touch them without checking. We hung the sunflower plaque on the wall near the cabinet. It'll hurt less to look at up there, I said, than hiding it in a box. A week later, I caught Taylor stopping in front of it one morning, coffee in hand, just staring. I get it a little more now, she said when she saw me. Why you wanted to keep using it. It's like holding a hand that isn't here anymore. I swallowed hard. Something like that, I said. As for the money, I didn't bring it up again immediately. Neither did they. A month went by. In that month, I noticed Taylor asking before she moved anything major, her stopping Ben when he started to call some of my things old stuff, and saying, Hey, that might have a story. Fewer comments about how my house could be if I just got rid of things. One quiet Sunday, Ben came into the living room and sat down next to me. Mom, he said, we've been talking. We don't want you to think we care more about money or a house than about you. If you never feel comfortable helping us with that, we'll figure it out. We'd rather earn your trust than your check. I looked at him for a long moment. I know, I said. And that right there, that's the kind of thing that makes me want to help you. He smiled a little. I'm not promising anything today, I added. But I'll say this. When I feel completely confident that you and Taylor will treat your own home the way I needed you to treat mine with respect for each other's memories, I'll be very excited to see what you do with a down payment. He nodded. That's fair, he said. Sometimes. Late at night, I still miss the weight of that mug in my hands. But when I see the plaque on the wall, the cracks held in place, the sunflower glowing under the kitchen light, I feel something else too. The sense that even broken things can be part of something new. I didn't set out to teach my daughter-in-law a lesson in some dramatic revenge way. I just needed her to understand that in this house, love and grief live in the small things. In chipped mugs, in old plates, in the way we talk about them. Maybe I could have handled it more privately. Maybe calling it out at a family lunch and tying it to a future gift was too strong for some people's taste. But for the first time in a long time, I heard, respected. Like my home is actually mine again. So I'll ask you, was I wrong for confronting my daughter-in-law in front of family and delaying a big financial gift after she destroyed my late wife's mug and called it just old junk? Should I have just accepted her first half-hearted apology to keep the peace? Or was drawing a hard line and giving her that big surprise exactly what needed to happen? Let me know your thoughts in the comments. And if you like stories like this, don't forget to like the video and subscribe for more Sophia-style family drama and Reddit-inspired stories.